Welcome to Accounting 360 Accounting Systems. First of all, I apologize for my voice and I apologize for all the delay that I've basically had a very terrible case of laryngitis for right on a little over 2 weeks now. And so I just haven't been able to record any videos or get some of this stuff going. Plus, there were other things before that they were going. I feel a little bit like Lemony Snicket, if that was the name of it. It's been a series of unfortunate events, including I cracked a tooth. I was moving at the very beginning of the term. Anyway, I apologize for the delay, but we're going to get moving now. And this is an asynchronous course that we should be able to cover all the topics that we need to without feeling like we're running out of time. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of the things that we're going to be working on. So I'm going to go through kind of all the basics of the course here: the syllabus, the textbook, homework, content, videos, quizzes, exams, case studies. So the syllabus, let's take a look at the syllabus here. You've probably taken a look at it, just recognize that it's asynchronous. The textbook we'll look at in a second is Accounting Information Systems. There'll be 4 exams. They'll essentially cover 3 chapters each. With each exam, I have a quiz. I'll talk a little bit more about how those two work together. There's some homework points. I'll talk about how that works, but most of you who've had me before know kind of sort of my approach to these. And we have 2 case studies, and I will be able to kind of guide you through those with no problem. Obviously, the schedule is a little bit out of whack. That was just sort of a schedule based upon a normal in-class situation. The way I'm going to do it here is that I'm actually going to allow you to take the to go through the material as quickly as possible, or if you've got other things going on with other class, to delay. I think what I'm going to do with the exams is I'm going to stagger them to where the final exam will be around the exam number 4 will be right around finals, and then what I'll have is each prior exam will be 2 weeks prior. So exam 3 will be due 2 weeks prior to the final. Exam 2 will be due 2 weeks prior to that, and exam 1 will be due on March 28th. So that allows you to, tailor this to how and when you want to get through the material. Obviously, getting through the material is sort of contingent upon me posting it, but we have almost all the material necessary for exam 1 to be up, and I hope to have most of the material up by the end of spring break, so that you can then kind of decide on your pacing going through it. We have 2 case studies. We'll look at where to get those here in just a second. We talked about the grade scale, general schedule, asynchronous. The type of content in this course, I realize that a lot of you take this course sort of at the end. It's sort of a filler course. The truth is that over time in Accounting 360 is a required course, but they've kind of fallen behind in what they want to teach in it. We used to kind of use it as an Excel course, but we have a separate Excel course at this university. I would love to do a database thing, but that requires a lot more infrastructure. And so the textbook we have isn't even, as you know, the CPA exam has been updated, and the information systems, or the IT part of the CPA exam, is a lot more robust. However, the textbooks haven't caught up yet. So what we end up doing is some courses are very hardcore, like, intermediate accounting or advanced accounting, are very focused on rules and learning a lot of content. Some courses are more experiential, meaning we just introduce a few things, show you this stuff so that it's most likely going to be different how you encounter it in your own job out in the real world, but at least having some sort of touchstone, having seen something about it previously, will allow you to get a jump start. So I would rank 360 as not being very intensive. It's more of a survey course of a lot of concepts that are kind of, generally used in the business place. For example, these first couple of chapters, we're starting to talk about business modeling. Now, your particular business might use a different set of model diagrams, but just going through the process of understanding what's the purpose, how do we execute it, what are we doing with it. Well, at least even if you don't use this particular set of diagrams in your own business, you will have at least encountered it so that you can talk intelligently about it. And that's with a lot of the topics here. We kind of go shallow, survey, introduce concepts that may or may not be used in your own business world. So personally, I believe 360 would best be served being done before audit, because we introduce the concept of internal control here. And of course, we introduce it from the point of view of the business. How does the business create internal controls? Whereas audit says, okay, now that the business has created internal controls, how do we test those controls? So it would make sense to take 360 and understand how the business goes about understanding, making internal controls, then take audit to where then you would say, okay, let's test those things. But I understand most people take this sort of at the end of the course or at the end of their end of their college career, just because it really doesn't fit in necessarily anywhere else. So let's get you on with kind of, going through the content, making sure you get it done, and hopefully it won't be too much of I guarantee it will not be too much of a burden. Okay, so that's the type of content. Where's the textbook? When we look at the textbook, we see that, we've got several things here. And if you haven't looked recently, I've started to add a lot more things. We have the syllabus that we just looked at. This video is going to be linked here. It's sort of a blank link right now, but as soon as this video goes live, it'll be linked here. I'll probably change the name to be the playlist. It'll include all the content videos. Here's the Harvard Business School case study link. You can get the two case studies. You can get the two case studies here. So Paul Dietrich Farms and the Barrett Gold. Total is a little less than $10, $9.90. Download those. We'll be doing the Dietrich Farms first, and Barrett Gold will be sort of the last thing that we do. I'll talk a little bit more about the case studies here in a sec. The textbook, some of the initial issues I had was that the bookstore is really trying to implement how we do stuff. Normally I'd have you just go to the publisher's website, log in there, but they really want it to be within D2L. So it took a while to get it done. So here, the ebook is linked right through here, just in your D2L content section. And the homework sections is also. Now you notice, except for the first one, the homework is going to be due April 30th. That's the last day of the term. Now, obviously, I don't expect you to turn it all in on that day, but rather than have a due date and you can turn it in after the due date with no penalty or something like that. I'm just going to make all the homework due by the end of the term, and that you have to pace yourself on when you're doing it. Now, obviously, doing the homework alongside of the chapters that are for each exam is a smart idea. But again, I'll let you pace yourself. Just realize that the homework's there. The due date, April 30th, pace yourselves, located in D2L, not the publisher's website. One or two people asked me that they saw some homework, but it wasn't open. That homework, and so I went back and actually opened a few more chapters to allow you to get going. But if you go to the publisher's website, you'll see some chapters that aren't open, but those are chapters from last spring that I haven't gone through and just revisited. Usually I like to go through and just double check that it has the questions I want in it, but I will be releasing those more quickly. And like I said, I should hopefully have almost all the content up by the end of spring break, so that you will be able to go and do things maybe in a bunch. Like maybe you go through and do, the second exam, all the homework, and you do the quiz and whatnot, and, just do it all at once rather than, over a couple of days rather than over a couple of weeks. And therefore you can kind of condense it and do things all in sort of a stretch. And in general, I feel like that's pretty good. The more focus you have on a subject rather than stretching it out over a couple of classes over a month, maybe it's better to just go through it all in a couple of days or a long weekend. Okay, sorry, my voice should be able to hold up. If we go back here, so the homework is there, content videos. I'm going to keep them relatively short because the content doesn't really necessitate a whole lot of explanation. Now, there are going to be some parts of this textbook where I'm going to, utilize the pictures and whatnot in the textbook. And that's, for example, the part that we're on now, doing diagrams, I'm going to, reference those during the content videos. Besides that, of course, I have the outlines. The outlines are the things that I use to create the questions for the quiz and the exam. The videos are going to be sort of more of a broader discussion for understanding. So, you can look at each of these exams and, each of these outlines. And most of these chapters are fairly brief. I can get them down to just about 3 pages per chapter. So, the quizzes, as I say, one for each exam. There's unlimited attempts, so you can get perfect score there. There's going to be approximately 8 or 9 questions from each chapter on the exam. Each quiz is, 8 or 9 questions from each chapter on each quiz. And so there will be 25 questions per quiz, 1 point each. There's 4 quizzes. That's 100 points. And the idea is that you're supposed to use them to practice for the exam, because some of the quiz questions will appear on the exam. So I'll select 4 or 5 questions from each chapter from the 8 or 9 questions on the quiz. And then on the exam, I will also add some new questions as well. And the new questions will come from the outline. So make sure that you read through. I don't know how in depth you want to study the outline, but just realize that the questions I have for the exam and for the quiz will come from the outline. On the exam, it's a Respondus lockdown browser. Most of you, hopefully all of you, have used it. If you haven't recently, just make sure that you do have it going. I might put something in the quiz section to allow you to test whether your Respondus is active or not, because perhaps you have a new computer or something. Just make sure that you have it in place so that you're not wasting time during the first exam to try and get that set up. There will be one short answer section. I'll give those topics before the exam. And as I mentioned, the exams are kind of all towards the end of the course. You can do them as soon as the content is up, or you can, arrange your schedule to take them when you want to take them. But I did, rather than make all the exams just due at the end of the term, I did stagger them. And like I said, there's a 2-week stagger. Exam 4 will be around the final exam week, and then 2 weeks, they're staggered 2 weeks going up from that. For the case studies, what we have is two case studies. I would prefer to have some sort of like database course, and I've tried to add that before, but that would require us to go to one of those, Udemy or one of those type of online learning sites. But I haven't been able to synchronize those. So what we have is, I've chosen a couple of things. This whole course is about a bunch of broad topics that you might encounter in your own business or working for companies. And so these are some of the things that I feel like are pretty common topics. Dietrich Farms, we're not going to do the complete case study. There's going to be a SWOT analysis. I think it's always good for you to get in critical thinking mode about reading a case study and figure out what's the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. But then we're going to do a cash flow analysis, and that will be in Excel. And what I'll do is this particular farm is buying 150 acres, and they're going to cycle different crops through it. So the first year is going to be corn, I believe. Second year is going to be soybean. Third year is going to be something else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cash flow analysis on the first year, the corn planting. And then we'll go through that together. I'll show you how to set it up in Excel. And then I will say, okay, your requirement for the Excel is to not only copy what I did for corn to make sure that you see how I set it up, but then to use that as a template to then put in the numbers for soybean yourself, and then come and find out whether or not there is a positive cash flow or a negative cash flow after each of these planting years. So I feel like that's something that I've always had to do when I'm in a business. Bosses are less interested necessarily in the income, the net income. They're more wondering, do I have enough cash flow to do, buy new equipment, pay bonuses, pay taxes, that sort of thing. So cash flow analysis is a very common thing that companies like you to do. Balanced scorecard, I've had to do that several times. It's just a way for you to be able to evaluate both financial and non-financial information, how to evaluate. And so how I used it previously in my career is when I was working with Nike out in Asia, we would do a balanced scorecard we did it of two different groups. Our cardboard suppliers for the Nike shoe boxes, and we did it for our leather suppliers that were supplying black and white leather. And so, based upon the scorecard, we would assign production volumes. And so the scorecard was actually, very closely followed by our suppliers, and they really did try and improve. So, that's a net positive for a company. So having a balanced scorecard, at least some practical experience, whether you use it directly like we use it in this case study, just knowing what it is and having gone through the process is useful. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? So the quiz is active. The first quiz is active. 25 questions. You can do it as many times as you want. And 25 points. And what I will do is I'll post in the next couple of days, I'll post the short topic, potential short answer topics. And as my voice comes back, I will do content videos, and then we'll post the first exam here pretty soon. If you have any questions, by all means, email me. I try and get back to everyone as quickly as possible. It doesn't sound like it, but my voice is actually coming back. So that's good. I hope to be back up to speed in a couple of days. But until then, just realize I'd say that 360 isn't a super intensive course. So I feel like even with sort of our late start, we're still pretty good to go. Okay. Thank you. I will talk to you soon, and I will keep you updated. Like I say, any questions, please let me know. Have a good day.